Hi all you lovely people, thank you so much for joining the session once again. We are here with another video for social studies and we're going to talk about the first chapter from history, class 10th, the rise of nationalism in Europe. Yes, this is that chapter that talks and takes a lot from you, probably expects a lot of cramming. You have to remember a lot of dates, you have to remember the independent struggle of all the countries, talk about romanticism, and then also position and talk about allegory, how the people probably associated themselves with the feeling of nationalism. Okay, so let's get started and talk about all the important questions that you guys can expect from this particular chapter, those who've opted this instead of the second chapter, Indochina. Now guys, there's a proper strategy that you have to follow when you have to answer a question. It's not just you get the question and you jump onto the answer sheet, start writing everything there and then. It's like you have to channelize your energy so that you can answer it the right way. So okay, let's get started with the first set of question in this case. So the very first question is, Napoleon had no doubt destroyed democracy in France, but in the administrative field he had incorporated revolutionary principles. Now the point you are supposed to focus in this case is administrative field. No doubt this person had done a lot of destruction, created a lot of terror, destroyed democracies around the world. Once he was considered as harbinger of prosperity and then he shattered everybody's dream, but he did something good for the people, and we're going to talk about it in this answer, that he had incorporated revolutionary principles in order to make whole system more rational and efficient. So you have to support your answer or the statement given here. Now, whenever it comes to Napoleon, so Napoleon was this person who was crowned as the Emperor of France, and once he was crowned, he was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo by the countries, which you can remember it by PRAB. That's Prussia, Russia, Austria, Britain. Of course, you're not going to support this clause in this statement, but just an easy trick to remember, like one of my sister is named Prab, so it's very easy for me to correlate Prab with the defeat of Napoleon. This is how you associate history or historical events with your real life events, right? So Prab defeated Napoleon, and you know what Prab stands for, right? Okay, second important thing that we're going to focus here is BPL. So when it comes to Napoleon, I'm going to talk about something that's BPL, and we're going to see to it what I mean to say when I talk about BPL. So I'm going to drop a very small hint for you guys. BPL has something to do with this code, and I know you people are pretty smart to understand that yes, there was a code introduced in 1804, introduced by Napoleon, known as Napoleonic Code, and that talked about three important stuff, that is BPL. Okay, so how are we going to go around when it comes to the answer? See, either you give a very good introduction that Napoleon was crowned as the Emperor of France, and initially he was welcomed by the countries or all the countries in Europe, because he was sort of considered as a harbinger and he's going to bring a lot of prosperity. But eventually people came to realize that no, he's actually destroying the democracy, he's doing into forced recruitment, pushing people, taking away their rights and stuff like that. So you're going to give a very good introduction related, like 2 points related to France and Napoleon. Then you're going to start your answer that yes, he did incorporate some basic changes in the administrative field that brought a big revolution in the countries across the globe, or maybe Europe for that matter. So now 2 ways to attempt. The very first practice that you guys are supposed to follow is, please answer your question in bullet, or maybe if not bullet, at least you can number them out. This way it's going to make your answer visible and it's going to fetch you more marks, the appropriate number of marks. Imagine there's khichdi placed right in front of you that has good nutritional value, like all the pulses, leguminous stuff there, and on the other hand you have, you know, probably pulses, chapatis, rice, you know, differently offered to you in different sections. So you would probably fetch, you know, get attracted towards a plate that offers you a variety. So the same case applies for the teacher who's going to evaluate your answer. Is khichdi is not going to make sense to them. They'll find or they struggle a lot when it comes to evaluation, and some cuisine that has been offered in different you know, plate in different sections would fetch more attention. So that is the case. That's the best example I can give you in this case. So how you're going to present your cuisine or maybe your answer so that it gives a clear image of who the person you are, what's your personality. So let's start about this. So in administrative field, Napoleon introduced many revolutionary principles. That's not going to be a pointer, that's going to be the heading. In any way you can remove this. Now let's talk about the very first point. Either you write it this way, that he sort of modernized the traditional institutions to make the state function well, to make the state get more effective and strong, and underline something here, modernize traditional institute. Similarly, in this point you can underline modern army. So you've underlined two important things. The second way to opt or attempt this question is, you guys can start your answer that he had, you know, modernized institutions, and what he did in it is right here in this point. Second point you guys can talk about is modern army. And then you can put your point here. And third that I was talking is civil. You guys can talk about civil code and then put your point across and write that yes, it talked about BPL. Now what's BPL? Don't give this acronym that it's BPL. Now B stands for, you know, it did away with all the privileges based on birth. P stands for secure the right to property, and L stands for establish equality before law. So this is what Napoleon did in his civil code of 1804. Napoleon even simplified the administrative division. He sort of abolished the system that was not working well for the country, and even he worked for the betterment of people who were treated as slaves. They were known as serfs. So the practice of serfdom was abolished, sort of brought to an end by Napoleon. So yes, he did simplify. Here you can point on simplified administrative divisions and then quote your statement right across the point. So, and then you can conclude your answer. I have given a good introduction. I have given a good answer, presented it the right way, and then I'm going to conclude it on the note that yes, despite the destruction of democracies that was done by Napoleon, he did brought out some effective administrative reforms which are still practiced across the countries world over. So that's how you're going to write the answer, and I told you what is PRUB and I'm told you what does BPL stand for. So let's jump on to the next set of questions. Explain any 4 features of Napoleonic Code. Now they've talked about 4 features of Napoleonic Code. So first, the introductory statement, like the teacher is not aware of what you're going to write here, what 4 points, like 1 point number 2, point number 3, point number 4, what points you're going to talk. She's not aware. But what you guys can do is give her a good introduction that Napoleonic Code was introduced by Napoleon in the year 1804, and this is also known as Civil Code. So these are some of the basic features that they sort of brought changes into. So the very first thing that you remember in this case, I talked about BPL, and you can define BPL, that is secured right to property, established equality before law, and did away all the privileges based on birth. So this is the first point that you're going to talk. So instead of writing something like that Napoleon probably brought out all these 3 basic reforms, what you guys can write is, put across the heading based on civil code, then you can define these 3 basic points. Second pointer that you guys are going to talk about, he abolished and the feudal system. Now when I talk about the feudal system, this basically means the privileges given to the people who were very near to the king or the nobles, and he sort of freed the peasants from their serfdom, and secured the rights of the people who were not given their due credit or privileges. Yes, he did something for their upliftment. And third important point, so what was there? In towns there were restrictions. So for example, there are some trade marks associated, there are some copyrights associated. So whenever you have a guild is a group of people who are confined to a particular job, who would never reveal their trade secrets. So they come together, they put in an effort and bring out the best. So that guild restriction was there. So every king, every territory had this guild restrictions. Every area in France would have, problem when it comes to transportation, when it comes to communication, when it comes to weights, measures, currencies. So you can divide and segregate these 2 important points, that yes, he brought about a new freedom and gave a new freedom to the businessmen by bringing in reforms, by helping them carrying out their process. That is, he sort of improved the transportation and communication, and yes, he also worked on a common currency that you guys know, and also that sort of facilitated the movement of exchange of goods. So these are all the basic points that you can summarize. In the end, you can of course conclude that Napoleon, despite being not recognized as a person who gave rights to the people for the territories he acquired, still he brought in many administrative and civil reforms that are still recognized and appreciated by the countries world over. So ensure that you give a good introduction and also a very good ending or a conclusion to your answer.